raining night and day, heavy downpours. But when it would clear, then it would be very fresh and nice. So, I remember one incident there. As usual, I would have to accompany Baba from the women's side to the men's quarters. And this would be round about breakfast time. Breakfast would come from outside. Baba had ordered food to come from outside. So breakfast would be toast and butter and hot tea. That would be our breakfast. So at breakfast time, Baba would see Mera and all, and then want to go to the Manli side. So as I would be having breakfast, Baba would be leaving. So I had to leave the whole thing there and rush off with the umbrella and Baba's board and his shawl and all that in one hand, and the umbrella on his head.
For the rain would be a problem at this place.
Yeah, but rain or sun, he wanted an umbrella on his head. So I would run behind him and then take him to the Manli quarters and the men Manli, then come back. And there would be my breakfast on the veranda with flies on it and the tea cold, half-eaten toast. So this would go on every day. I would notice that Baba, as I would be having the breakfast, would go out for his visit to the Manli side. So one day I got an idea. I said, I won't eat breakfast today. I'll take Baba first, and after reaching him there, come and then relax and eat breakfast instead of rushing through breakfast. So then I decided to do that. Then I waited, and I waited, and I waited. But Baba wouldn't come out. I was wondering what happened. I didn't know what it was. What was keeping Baba? Every day invariably he would be out by that time. But look what happens. So, what was it, coincidence, or what? He wanted to drive home some lesson to me. So I waited almost half an hour. I was thinking now what to do. So I said, let's start the breakfast and eat it quickly. So I started to eat. Exactly halfway, as usual, as the usual routine, halfway through the breakfast there he was out. Now what do you call that, coincidence? Or was it he was waiting for me to do that? So see how this happens, all spontaneously.
Well, you were setting the schedule for the avatar. He would go to the men's mandali side when you were halfway through your breakfast.
So Baba wanted me not to be attached to the breakfast. Yeah. Whatever way he wanted, it should be like that. He was driving home that lesson. But what expense to him to wait till I started my breakfast. He was finding some excuse there to carry on some work. The excuse as far as I say, but it was some work he was doing there. All very spontaneous and simultaneous.
His ways are so sublime.
Yes.
On such...
Absolutely unfathomable. On the look of it, it was just coincidence. But see how well calculated and timed it was for me to get that lesson that I shouldn't be so attached to having a comfortable breakfast, Yeah. So then thereafter I never had any brilliant ideas, Just to be what it was, to endure whatever came our way. Even in this young age, he brought home these lessons.
Yeah, so you took the point then, even then.
It was natural, because the result was obvious that if I tried to do that, this would happen. It would be more trouble for me.
Right.
To eat a cold breakfast halfway, instead eat nice fresh breakfast halfway. And I hear that the similar experiences were with Rano and the women Manli inside. Invariably when Rano always liked tea hot. My mother would tell me this. And she would tell mother and all that. So she would be having this cup of tea on her lips, and Baba would clap for her, and she had to leave that tea, and Baba would give her some work which was so trivial that she would get thoughts in her head, why must Baba call me just when I am having tea? And then when she finished that work, he would send her to some different errands so that her tea got cold. When she returned, she had to drink the cold tea. Until she realized that Baba is undergoing so much pains to bring home to her that she must not be attached to hot tea. But Baba would never tell her straight, direct. But do these things. So the amount of infinite patience that Baba would show to each one of us to bring home these little things, as to be totally subservient to his wish and not to be attached to anything else. Where in these ways he would bring home in the most natural manner.
What infinite attentiveness that he would even care.
Exactly.
That your cup of
and
tea.
not to show that. And the funny thing was that after the errands would be over, then Rano would go there and Baba would say, "Oh, your tea has got cold. Oh, that's too bad." So Rano would feel all the more,
I was just thinking, you were speaking at Rishikesh with these sannyasis there, and these, men would go through such, at least some of them, terrible austerities.
Yeah.
But the form of austerity that Baba would give would be so subtle and so
Exactly.
infinitely attuned.
Yeah. The thing was that Baba wanted all attention on him, all importance given to him, everything to be centered around him. So a meditation all 24 hours of your life, a spontaneous meditation. And that is what it is all about, to forget yourself and remember him. That's the whole game, But it is done so spontaneously and so naturally, without any unnatural coercion or anything. And for that Baba had to himself undergo so much trouble for us. Despite all the preoccupation of his infinite work and having to attend to so many diverse things all around him, even on the gross plane. How he had the time to spare with each one of us. Yes. It's incredible.
So many of these stories of Baba bring out that actually he was giving his attention even at those times where he seemed to be ignoring you completely.
Yes, to ignore you was such a difficult thing for him to do. And he made it so very obvious that he was doing this on purpose. But to be felt ignored like that was the most crushing experience that people had with him. You felt as if you were totally worthless, that there was no necessity for you to carry on with life. That's how you actually felt at times. So many, most of the close Mandalia have undergone this. And Baba was at such pains to get this experience through, Yes. Actually, Rano would say that Baba would see as if through me, as if I was not there. And he would be pointing to someone just through me, as it were, behind someone. And she thought she was being addressed, but to somebody else. She was not there. And so many others had these very, very difficult experiences.
Did you ever have that kind of thing with him?
Somewhat, yeah. When I would want to sit in front of him, Baba would send me to these little errands, and I would feel, why is selecting me? So many people are there sitting close by to the door, and I would have to cross all those people and go there, go give the errand. Then he would ask me, come in, sit. What happened? Did you give the message? And then a few seconds later, he would send me back again. And there would be an annoyance in the mind. Why is he doing this now? He's going to go away, I won't be seeing him. And I would have these little experience. Not realizing that Baba is doing this so much for us. We are foolish enough not to realize at that time. And getting actually annoyed.
Well, I can imagine, again, it's this Baba's humanness would be so utterly convincing. In that way. I was thinking also, Meherwan, I guess this is digressing, that, with those, sannyasis and Baba would say that it wasn't their fortune even to
get a glimpse of him.
Yeah. And yet somehow you got born, or you landed right in the middle of all of this. And here you are as a boy going, why did that happen?
Well, that is, as Baba would say, past connection. Runanubandh is the word.
What is it?
Runanubandh. It's a Hindi term, or probably Sanskrit, which means past connection. Unless you have past connection with him, no amount of say good deeds or anything is going to bring you to him. It's ages and ages of past connection that we come to him. You and me and all these people who are now around Baba. It's not just coincidence, or it's not just a quirk of fate or something. It's all very well planned and very well charted out. That's always the case. But we don't know what we were in the past and how we have had this great privilege of being associated with him, even to be born in his time. Yes. So that's how it was. And then there was another small incident at this place where in Lonavala, Masaji was very fond of me. So one day he offered me a few sweets, And just then Baba happened to come there. And he saw Masaji giving me those sweets. So these were given as prasad by Baba to Masaji. And he is giving it out to me. And Baba was very upset with him. He says, what do you take this to be, I give you a prasad to be given away to somebody? Don't I feel for this child? You think you are his great big benefactor or something? And he gave him a good washout right in front of me, and I felt so embarrassed about the whole thing. And poor Masaji was all crestfallen. He says, Baba, I'm sorry. You not respected my prasad, and Baba was just slamming out at him. And Baba could be very, very harsh with words, In the previous days, of course, he would thrash people, but in the later days, even with silence, he could thrash people with his words, and it would be equally devastating. Yeah, he would be totally devastated. And then, of course, the usual embrace and forgiveness, everything would be clean and clear again. So then another incident was that one day this landlord comes barging in. Now, Baba's rule was that whenever he occupied any place, no one should enter. It was strictly secluded, especially the women's side. So this fellow wanted to come in, and Masaji was at the gate. I was there having some fun with him. And this fellow comes in, so Masaji blocks him. So he says, please don't enter. He says, what do you mean? This place belongs to me. Masaji says, that's true, but we have rented the place and we have made a condition, no disturbance. Yeah, that might be for outsiders, but this place belongs to me. I'll see how you stop me from getting in. He started making a big ruckus there and started shouting at the top of his voice and all froth coming from his mouth. I was all so scared. He tried to get in and Masaji had to physically restrain him, and it was a big scene, Masaji somehow told him, please don't do this. And he went off in a huff. He says, I'll see how you stop me. I don't like this and all that. And he just made himself scarce after that. So this was reported to Baba. And Baba says, let's go from here. This is no place for us. So within a couple of days, or I think 2 or 3 days, Baba had people search frantically for another house, and we shifted with bag and baggage to another place. And I remember it was called Prospect Lodge.
This is still in the same city?
In Lonavala, yeah, some distance away. But a better place than this, much more scenic, much more spacious, and belonging to a Mrs. Dean, I remember. She was a nice, gracious old British lady, and she owned this place, and she was staying in an outhouse just off the place, and she would give out this big place on rent. So we had rented this house there, and we all shifted to that place there, and then we were there for quite a few months. Baba liked the place, he liked the surroundings, it was really good. Huge estate with acres and acres of wild land all around, and a stream flowing at the edge. So we would all go down in the evenings, something like Rishikesh, and the stream flowing by. And Baba would, when he was not on his usual must tours, he would go with us down there. It would be some places were open, and then Baba would play games with us, especially Gilli Danda. So Gilli Danda is a game where there's a small stick pointed at both ends and a big stick, and that small stick would be hit, so it would bounce up, and while it's in the air, it has to be hit again, and the distance that it traveled would be measured, and that the number of distances of the stick would be the measure. So 100 stick length or 200 stick length. So those would be the points that you gathered by that hit. And Baba would be very expert in hitting that gilli. So Mani would be on the opposite camp. There would be 2 camps. And Baba would be on one side with Mera, of course, and Mani would be on the other captain. And when one hits, the people stand there at a distance and try to catch that gilli. If you catch it, then that person is out. Then the next one comes, and so on, till all the members are out. Then the next team has the chance to do the scoring. So Baba would be there, and he would hit that little gilli a long distance with a big whack, and nobody could, of course, catch Baba. And then Baba would say, now this distance, I'd say this is 500 sticks. So Mani would say, no way, Baba, this is not more than 100 sticks. So Baba said, all right, let's count. So then he would start counting, and so swiftly he would count, and he would do all these zigzag counting. And not only that, but he would keep the stick back each time. So you see, if we measured like that, then again halfway back and again. So by the time they reach there, it would be about 600 sticks. Mani would shout, "No, Baba, you are cheating. This is not the way. Let's count again." She would never be able to catch him,
Oh, it must have been great fun. See that?
Great fun, yeah. Baba would be very, very quick and alert in these games and wanted everyone to pay attention to the games, not to drift away or anything. Yeah, so everybody's attention had to be fixed on the game. Everybody had to take great interest, try hard to win the game. Yes. So everything had to be done with full zest and interest.
Which side would you be on?
No, I would just observe from a distance and watch the fun,
Who are some of the good players?
Baba, of course. Then there was Katie, Mani. Some other players there might be, but mainly it would be Baba and Mani fighting it out. So it would be fun to watch them play. Then Baba would have other games sometimes. People, I remember there was a time when Baba had this different items of games, races, people with 1 foot each tied together and running along, as if they were 3 legs. And then sack races, and everybody had to do the maximum effort to try and win. So all these little games would be there.
So the 3-legged people, I imagine, would fall down from time to time.
Yeah, there would be aged people in the ashram also.
Oh, really?
They all had to participate in it. So we enjoyed all these games. And then a high point in Lonavala was the expected visit of Mother.
Oh!
Because Pune was close by, So Mother had to come there. And she sent word that she was coming. So Baba says, "Oh my, we are having to have some big time with her." So he tells Airaj that, "Look, Mother is coming, you go to receive her at the station. And when she asks you, how is the place around, you give her a very, very dangerous picture. Say there is lots of rain and there are all sorts of snakes and scorpions." Of course, it was a fact that lots of snakes and scorpions would come out. I've never seen those size of scorpions ever anywhere else.
Really?
Huge, 6-inch long scorpions with hair on them, with dark green and dark black.
Okay. So you really did have to watch out.
Yeah. You had to be careful. So, and Mother was extremely scared of snakes. So you paint such a picture that she will hesitate to stay on here, otherwise I'll have no time with my work and she'll become a headache to me, and whenever she would come, she would be complaining of this and that and her health. And so Baba would be upset with all her little grumblings, So try to discourage her as much as possible, but be very discreet, My mother is shrewd. So Airaj said, "Yes, Baba, I will see." So then she arrives at the station, and there is Airaj, received her, and then they get into the carriage, and now they are coming along. So Airaj waits for her to ask something, and she says, "Well, how is everything here?" And immediately Airaj was wanting to speak out. So he says, "Mother, everything is beautiful around, but the weather here is awful. It rains all the while, and due to that there are so many snakes. The other day 3 snakes were killed by the watchman and brought and shown to us." So Mother says, "Really?" And then there are so big scorpions, we've never seen in our life such scorpions. And we really feel scared about this place. "Oh, really?" what else did Meherwan tell you to tell me?
She was sharp.
And Neeraj looked, asked, what, mother? No, tell me what else did he tell you to tell me to scare me out of this place? I know everything, I am his mother. You tried to tell me these things? Do I not know this place? Neeraj was so abashed by this answer. He says, no mother, I really tell you. Oh, you keep quiet. You are a small child, you don't know anything. So this was a very humorous incident. And he had to tell Baba what happened. And Baba says, I told you, see, she's very shrewd. You must have not said it convincingly to her. And he said, no Baba, I made it very convincing, but she immediately found out what it was.
What a character.
Yeah. Then in Lonavala, of course, that rule was there. Each one had to be in their own room. Nobody should go into the other person's room. And this was always there.
So a lot more separation of the people.
It was going on. Baba was coming to the end of the phase of dismantling the big ashram.
Yeah.
So I think these were the first steps that Baba was taking to isolate people.
Was this are we in 1943 or which year?
42 still.
This is still 42?
Yeah, this is the end of the year now. We are in September.
Yeah.
So while in Lonavala the rains cleared up and the weather was beautiful and very fresh, Baba would take us out for long walks. There was a big lake there, I remember. And we used to go there with Baba. And it used to go on like this. Once, I remember, and the Baba was in very strict seclusion, I remember. So, Baba would come from the men's place to the women's, and then one time he said that now no one should come out and see Baba. A certain time he gave these instructions. So as soon as it was announced that Baba is approaching, everybody had to go into their rooms and lock themselves in until Baba went into the room, Mehra's room. He would only see Mehra, Mani and one or two other women Manli. And only those whom he would call to ask or whatever. But otherwise nobody should even try to see his face while in the ashram, mind you. So it used to be very, very tough for people there. But I was allowed to see him because I had to accompany him again to the Mandli side, men Mandli, and carry his food and water from the women's side to where he was. There was another bungalow midway between the women's side and the men's side where Baba was there with a couple of other Mandli, and he would be in seclusion there. So he also didn't see the men Mandli very much. So these periods of strict seclusion were interspersed with, of course, hectic must activity, which was all the while going on.
Now, Lonavala was not itself a must ashram, was it? I mean, Muslims were not brought in.
No.
Baba would just go out.
Go out, yes, on all these long must tours in crowded trains and all, because it was still wartime, you know. It was now, it was mid-war time. War at its height, actually. And Baba's activity at its height, must activity.
That's right, in the war at that particular time, everything was hanging in the balance.
Oh yes, it was touch and go.
When Baba was in seclusion in those days, would he actually go into a room and be in seclusion that way?
Yeah, he would sit all by himself, and he would not want the least noise or disturbance, especially from people living with him. Outside noise, traffic noise, he said it didn't disturb him. But the least noise of the inmates was a tremendous disturbance to him. So that's why he would say that remain seated where you are, don't move. The least disturbance from you will be a great disturbance in my work. So we had to be very careful about that. Yes. So
the bell rang a minute ago.
Yeah.
I can eat any time. But
Baba.
Jai Baba.
So as I was saying, Baba had entered into a very strict phase of seclusion, and he had given orders that whenever he came from the quarters where he was in seclusion, the women's ashram, everybody had to retire into their rooms and not look in the direction from which Baba was approaching. And no one was to try and even see Baba's face. But I had the duty to accompany Baba to and fro, to take his food and drinking water in a can from the women's side to where he was in seclusion. And
so this would not just be accompanying Baba to the men's side, but also later in the day,
to carry the food and water.
And his seclusion place, you were saying before lunch, was a spot between the two.
Was a midway between the women's quarters and the men's quarters. And I had instructions that on the way I should not keep Baba's water can or food box on the road surface. So although my hands would tire, but it was quite some distance. So I had to carry straight from the kitchen right to where his room was, without depositing it anywhere on the road. And I remember this was one of the phases. Then Baba once started this practice when he would leave the women's quarters to retire to his place. Everybody had to come out. This was before he went into seclusion. And it would be evening time, quite dark. And I would have to accompany him. But before he left, he would stand there and then he would wave to everybody. So in turns he would cast his glance on each one, and everyone had to wave him back.
Individually?
All were waving together, but he would see to each one. So I was just standing there thinking that I am going to be with him. So I wasn't waving. So he looked at me and he says, "Why aren't you waving? Start waving." So then I started waving. And then he says, "Come on, let's go." So his attention was particular in every little detail. So this little incident is still fresh in my mind.
Were you the only boy there?
No, I think I was the only boy. Jangu was there. Yeah, Jangu, Meru's little brother, and Adi Kotwal. These were the two young boys with me. So we three used to play together as children.
Did you have to go to school at this particular time?
No, in Lonavala it was a mid-year. No school would give entrance. And but at the same time I had to keep on continuous studies. So I had all this timetable and the subjects, and I had to keep on studying, which was a pain in the neck.
Who was your monitor for that?
Iraj would keep helping me in the studies.
Was your father
he was there. I remember my father was there.
But again, it sounds like you really weren't under the discipline of your father
No.
this time. As you you had described his discipline last
Yeah,
time with
that
cracking
was-
the whip on the Mandalay.
Oh no, not that way. I was on the women's side.
Yeah.
So Papa had nothing to do with this side.
Uh,
But Papa was a good cook, mind you. So off and on Baba would ask him to cook, and the women mandali, especially Mera, would like his food very much. So my father was also an expert cook, so I gathered. And, yeah, Mera somehow had a very good liking for my father. Had a soft spot for him. So I forgot to mention a couple of incidents in the earlier stay at Dehradun and Rishikesh. So I just remember, before we came to Lonavala.
yeah.
So while we were in Dehradun, my mother was given the task of cooking food for Baba. So she would put her heart and soul into it and prepare exquisite dishes for Baba. Baba would like it. But somehow the people around used to be a little peeved about this privilege being given to somebody relatively new, So they would complain to Baba, Baba, this guy, my mother's name, she has a very nasty habit, Baba, of putting sugar in each and every dish she prepares. So even in plain dal she puts sugar, Baba, and it's not good for you, Baba. You should tell her to stop this and all this. There was some sort of bickering going on in Baba's ears. This would go on in the ashram all the while, one against the other. So Baba said, yes, this is very serious. He would go along with all this, So he calls my mother and says, so my mother was a little nervous, why have I been summoned like this while she was cooking? Then she stood there. And just an aside on to this is that Baba would call my mother and the sisters on one pretext or the other, even when it was very strict seclusion, just to give them a good firing. But after the firing, he would embrace them and send them off. They little realizing that they were given this exclusive privilege of seeing Baba. Yeah. But the excuse he would show was that he's calling them to give them a good firing. So all others would be happy about it. So Baba was very, very skillful.
Master of infinite needs.
Yeah. So outwardly nobody would be peeved because good, they deserve this little firing every now and then. And the main reason was that they were being called to be with Baba for some time at least.
Did they appreciate that fact?
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
The initial uncomfortableness was there. When Baba would be annoyed, he would show annoyance. Yeah. But then they understood what it was. So my mother tells me all this later. And she would even have tears in her eyes that Baba would have to go to such lengths to allow us to be with him for a few minutes despite his seclusion work and all that. Yeah, with great feeling she would remember this. And would even say that in the early times we never knew what Baba was doing to us. So the realization must have come later. But Baba always did things in a very natural way. And then eventually it dawned on us what he was up to, but not at that time. Anyway, so then my mother was called in Baba's presence, and then Baba looked very serious. And Baba starts in a very grave and studied manner, He says, do you know what privilege you are having now? So my mother says, yes, Baba, you have allowed me the privilege of cooking for you. Do you know how precious this person, this body is for the whole of the universe? So she says, yes, Baba, I realize that. So, don't you think that you must take the greatest care when you do prepare food for me? She says, yes, Baba, I put my heart and soul in the food and I'm sure you must be liking it. Baba says, yes, I like your food, but I hear a very grave piece of news that you have a bad habit of putting sugar in every dish. Is it true? Is it true that what I hear? So my mother gets a little scared. Then she says, yes, Baba, I do that. Do you realize what you are doing? Supposing I get diabetes, what would happen? This body will perish. Do you realize the consequences? You are fooling with my person. Do you realize what you are doing? And he then became very serious and very harsh. And how dare you do these things, and don't you have the sense to do it and all that? So she said, Baba, I'm sorry, but I thought this would give a little taste to the food. So then what about my health then? So she said, Baba, I'm very sorry this happened, but I'll never do it again. I swear I'll stop this practice altogether. It never dawned upon me that it would be harmful for your health. But how is it that you didn't realize this without my having to tell you? You should have thought of this. Why such carelessness on your part? I am very, very displeased with you. I don't think that you really care for my well-being and this and that. Tell me, will you ever do this again? Baba, I swear I'll never touch sugar again in your food. I'll never do it again, Baba. No, but then why did you do it? And he said, and my mother said, that this went on for about half an hour. Baba repeatedly telling her, why did you do it and will you ever do it again? And she repeatedly asserting that, Baba, I'll never do it again. Then swear that you will never do it again. So she again swears, Baba, I swear with my life that I'll never touch sugar again. But why did you do it? So this went on and on and on. She was really flabbergasted that why Baba is prolonging this. This was one of the ways. He was in seclusion, was not seeing anybody, and she was getting all this time with Baba. She didn't realize it then. But then the biggest fun follows, And then he says, call Erich. I want to fire her in front of Erich also. So then Erich was called. And Baba says, your mother is doing these things. Does she have a habit? So Erich says, yes, Baba, she does have that habit. She even puts sugar in scrambled eggs, and I always tell her not to do it and this and that. Even Erich was siding with Baba, So poor mother was having a very tough time from all quarters. And then the other women also chimed in. Baba, give her good, she doesn't listen, this and that. And they were all very perked up, So poor mother was just hearing, and she was in literal tears at the end. So then, swear again that you won't put sugar in my food. She says, Baba, I swear with your name I swear that I'll never do it again. So thrice he made her swear like this, repeating again and scolding her no end. That was it. Then she said, all right, now you go. I'm rather displeased with you. Although your food is tasty, but I never knew you were adding poison to it and this and that. Then as she was going out of the door, Baba claps and says, come here. So she says, now what? Looked asked and said, Baba, Then Baba says, look, keep preparing the food as you have been doing. I like it very much. She was just nonplussed. She didn't know what Baba was saying even. Baba, yes, I will not put sugar. Do you hear what I say? Do exactly what you have been doing right up to now. Don't listen to anybody.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
She was totally floored with this. She says, I've never had such an experience in my life. And she just broke down there. And Baba says, I'm most happy with what you are doing. I'm so touched with your great feeling and concern for me. And don't take anything to heart, but just keep doing what you have been doing. I enjoy your food the most. So she just couldn't believe her ears that Baba here for half an hour had been so seriously scolding her, seriously scolding her, and then asking her to continue doing this. And all around also there was hushed silence. And she got a big embrace from Baba and was dispatched. So it was a very remarkable experience in her life.
Wow. Yeah. Did she have anything to say about that? What did that show to her? I mean, it must be
no, just to please the others. She was scolded, but she realized that Baba gave her so much time in front of him because she hadn't seen Baba's face for a long time. So this was an opportunity for her to be in his presence. And then she realized all this. And then she was scolded that you are no good, you don't have feeling for me, you are poisoning me. And then after that to say that he was most pleased with what she has done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to stir up all her feelings and then, so it was a terrific washout for her, inside out. She used to describe this incident very vividly. So this was one thing I forgot to mention. And another thing was while we were in Rishikesh, as I mentioned, we went at the time of the year when people don't go there for tourism or any such thing. And Baba always selected the wrong time. So one of the things which we had to do was in the evening between 4 and 5, we had to sit out on the rock there and do meditation. So everybody remembers that the red hot rock underneath and all ants all moving about trying to seek cooler places, getting into our underwears and all that. And they said that we all tried to wait for the bell to go. So that was signifying the end of the meditation. So that was the meditation.
What were you being asked to do in this?
Yes, all of us had to do it. But being young, I didn't mind the heat or anything, but the others all felt. So it was hot from the top, hot underneath, and meditation.
Well, I guess you were in Rishikesh, you should meditate.
Yeah, probably. Probably he was getting them to meditate. Who knows for the people who are meditating there for him.
What was the subject of the meditation? Were you supposed to know his name or?
Yeah, to remember him and repeat his name, like that. There was an earlier time also when we were to return to Bangalore, when Baba started this meditation business. And everybody had to read one article that Baba had given. You see,
the discourse,
in the discourse you will find there is a discourse where a subject is given as a matter for meditation.
Okay, like the divine theme.
That's right.
Evolution,
yeah.
All that stuff.
So that was printed out in a circular form, and each one was given that, and they had to sit and read that, including myself, and try to follow what was written and imbibe what was written in that. And at that time, this was I think in 1941 or something, 41. And we were given fast also. So only meal once in 24 hours. And I remember I used to be really hungry. So when the time came for the meals, I could barely wait. And then I would eat and eat and eat until my stomach just bloated up.
After the one meal, you would have as much as you want.
Yeah, as much as you want. But only one meal a day.
How, this meditation on that article, how long would that be? Would you reread the article over and over again if you finished it, or?
Yeah, I think about half an hour or an hour was given for people to slowly read this and digest what it is. Every day the same thing must be read and try to imbibe the whole thing in the mind.
There is, as you say, a discourse that continues to have that as part of it, and it sets it forth as a
subject for meditation. So we were the people on whom this experiment was done for future generations to come, probably. And this was continued, I think, for a year. So even when we went to Bangalore, everyone had to continue doing this. Some time was given, and
Did you like it?
Yeah, I like to read it. And but the fast was so taxing that eventually I had to go to school and all that. So Baba sent word that let Meherwan be excluded from the fast. And boy, I was really happy about that. Being young, you could really feel hungry, You're running about here and there. And the pangs of hunger are really felt in young age, which you don't feel later on.
Right. So this fast was going on through that whole Bangalore phase, was it then? Or?
About a year it went on.
Wow.
I think, Baba had given instruction. Baba would give off and on instructions for fasting or meditation or whatever. Whatever he told us to do, we did. Never on our own. He never encouraged us to do anything on our own. Only as to follow as a part of his order that we did these things. So, and then he would ask us to stop, and then we had to stop. Otherwise, no attachment even to that. That is what he always insisted upon. And then another incident I remember was that while we were coming to Lonavala in the train, Baba was there in the compartment, we were all there. And all of a sudden, Baba became very pale and his pulse began to sink. And there was a big hustle, bustle and scurry. And there was the first aid box. And Baba became totally drained of all blood as it was. He looked very pale and he couldn't lift his hands or feet. He appeared as if he was in a faint, although his eyes were open. And he looked as if he's about to pass away. He looked so serious. And then there were some drops which Neelu always used to ask the women to ask Rano to carry as first aid. I remember Coramin drops or something. And they were given to Baba, and within a few minutes he again was out of that sudden phase of we don't know what. Probably some internal working. All of a sudden he had this. So it was a very scary incident on the way, which I remember.
I've heard things like that before. Did you see very much of that happening with Baba?
No, this was the only time I saw it in front of my eyes. Baba just lying there helpless, unable to move, and very limp Yeah.
Oh. Oh, it must be alarming.
Yeah, everybody was alarmed. There was great panic, as it were.
Yeah.
Well, it was part of his work. Just after a few minutes, he was back to his normal. Yeah. So, but I've heard that during times of great internal working, these spells would come forth to Baba. I suppose the intense pressure of internal work must be having effect on the body, momentarily.
Did you have any, during all these years, these different ashrams, did you ever have impressions of Baba's, apart from this, Baba having physical health issues?
Yeah. Later on, I had personal experience of it.
But at this early time, you were
nerve-shattering to see him suffer. Yeah. Terrible. Most of his life was just suffering and suffering and suffering.
Were you aware of it during these early years, like in the early 40s you were talking about?
When this happened, of course, there was general panic everywhere.
But other times, when you were just with him at the ashrams, were you aware he was having any physical sufferings? Or
he would keep telling us that the pressure of work is immense, crushed with the work. Those were the constant refrains, day in and day out. Yes. Especially in the wartime days, of course, there was tremendous burden of work on him. And especially after Maharaj, Courtesies Maharaj gave him the final keys of the universe, as it were. And he was on his own, as it were. All the burden was on him. So he had to suffer a lot. Yes, so where were we then?
We're down to 58 minutes, 26 seconds. Is there anything really short that we could just
2 minutes more?
Yeah.
Well, there's another big incident in Lonavala, which I think we'll carry forward next time.
Okay.
But for the present, let's not interrupt it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll call it a day.
Otherwise, the Lonavala stay was quite happy. Another thing was that we went to see the Tata power station at Khopoli. So Baba took us in the blue bus. The bus was there. I don't know how it came there. It was there. And so Baba took us to Khopoli, which is down the mountain range. So we had to go on these hairpin bends. And I was sitting by the side of Baba, and he says, "Are you worried about this?" Because I was a little tense, terrible heights we were, and these sharp bends, and this big bus worming itself around these sharp bends. A slight slip and it would be down. I think Airaj was driving or something. So I said, "Yes, Baba, I feel a little nervous." He says, "Don't worry." Of course, Baba was by my side, but still I had a little anxious time descending those ghats. Then we reached that place at Khopoli, but unfortunately the war was on, and this was a restricted area because it was the main source of power supply for Maharashtra, Bombay province at that time. So it was strategic. So you required passes and special things to enter because there was danger of sabotage and all that. So the British were very careful about it. Although it was a private thing, it was owned by the Tatars, but still we were denied entry. So
all for naught.
Baba said, "Let's go back." So we went back.